We call it a press conference, but really what it is an opportunity, an excuse to spend a little time with a couple of very extraordinary people. The filmmakers of the Tiger competition, our main competition, the heart of the festival, the thing that we really strive for, to discover new people that bring us new visions and push us just a little bit further. Let's find out who they are. I can actually not see which slides I'm doing, Jenny, so let's see what's... These are, I can see it over there, I think. This nice-looking bunch of people have brought us extraordinary films. We call them Tiger nominees. We call them artists. We call them filmmakers. They're humans that have brought films to us, 8 that we screen 1 each day. We kicked off with Sons of Denmark. We've had No Coração do Mundo. We've had Take Me Somewhere Nice. Tonight will be Present.Perfect. And we want to take this little moment to show a little of what they have made so that you get a chance to talk to them if you have questions. We're streaming it so that people who are in their hotel room working to their schedule also have time to see what's what. Because it's 8 filmmakers, we divided it in 2 sessions. Today we'll speak with 4 filmmakers. The first one being a very talented and luckily also very eloquent young man from Denmark. His name is Ulaa Salim. We'll talk to him in a second. But first, let's take a little look at a clip from Sons of Denmark.
Jeg er klar om et par timer. Vi mødes ved caféen senere i nat, så kommer Hassan og giver os alle detaljerne. Og hold dig til din rutine, gør alting som du plejer, så din familie ikke fatter mistanke. Okay?
Ja, okay. Har du selv en familie?
Nej.
Hvis der sker mig noget, vil du så ikke love mig, at du vil passe på mig?
Jo. Selvfølgelig.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ulaa Salim to the stage. The obvious question, first of all, how are you feeling?
A bit nervous, I guess. This is my first press conference, but I'm happy, and I'm happy to be here. And I'm glad to have shown the film for the first time for an audience, and having a full cinema to show the film, working on it for so many years, and then all of a sudden you get to see it and experience it with the audience.
On a little side note, we were happy to see that it scored pretty high in the audience poll, so you've clearly touched a nerve. Can you tell us just a little bit of the background of why you wanted to make this particular film?
Yeah, so I got into film school like 6 years ago, and they asked us what feature would you dream of making, and I had these characters in mind, and I started writing the film, and it really just it felt like this was the film I wanted to make, and I didn't know what would happen, but every time people would read the script, they would say it's too much, or it's like the world is not like this. And during the film school, I was doing my shorts, doing my graduation, but still working on the script, and all of a sudden the same people would read the script and they would say, okay, now it's too close to reality. And when I had that experience, I knew that this was the film I need to make, because the film asks a question: what happens when extreme voices become normalized? And I thought, for me to see it on black and white, because I was working with it for so long, that it was a necessary film to make.
Just to set up the film a little bit for those who haven't seen it yet or haven't read the synopsis, it paints, well, maybe you can describe how it paints a picture of a Denmark that probably, when you started working on it, was far away. Maybe it's closer than we think.
Yeah, it's set after a major bomb attack in Denmark, a terror attack, and it's kind of how will society react? Because in a sense, the last decade we've been speaking a lot about the core values of society. What will we give up and what will we keep as a society? And I thought to put it in the future and put it after a terrible attack. What if we don't just speak about the core values of society, but we actually start to change the core values of society. And in that, we follow a young man that sees his society, the place he grew up, change a lot, and he starts to fear for his family. And I see a politician that's very nationalist that starts to make it to maybe become the next prime minister of Denmark.
So there's a tonal shift in the film that we will not focus on too much, but there is a very strong element that deals with the cast, and particularly the two, let's say, the two protagonists of the film that have quite a responsibility. How did you find them, and how did you prepare them for this film that may have even touched them personally?
So Saki Yusuf, that plays one of the big characters, Ali, I've known for many years, and he was in one of my first short films, a talented young man. And I was always thinking, like, with him, he might be able to lift this part, but he hasn't done a feature before. So I started to look for the young kid, like 19 years old, and there was no actors like that in Denmark. So I just looked like everybody I knew, who my friends knew, and Facebook and everything, and we casted like 60, 70, maybe more. And there he was, this little kid that's so nice, and he's warm-hearted, and I thought, well, to put him in this character that's really determined and very, how can you say, scared, that those two things would play very well. And from that, I kind of the rest of the cast, and for the nationalist politician, I casted many good Danish actors, and Rasmus Bjerg, who's mostly known as a comedian in Denmark, but was really, really good at the casting, and he really wanted to do the part. And it gave me also kind of a meta lay on the storyline, that this is a guy you all know, this is a guy that's very likable. What happens when he opens his mouth and says some very, very extreme stuff, but in a normal tone of voice? How will you react?
Since it's a press conference, if any of you have a question, just interrupt, let us know. If it's too soon, we'll have more time after we stop streaming, and we'll have a bit more informal session. But if you have a question now, just feel free to shout out, and I will repeat the question. Just a quick look. No, not yet. So, how optimism or despair at this moment? Not just for the film, but it's out there. The premiere has been there. The audience has clearly reacted well. Maybe it will shock. Are you more positive or more negative towards what's happening right now?
No, it's very important for me to say that I didn't make this film as a warning or as I think this will happen in a decade or less. It's the opposite. I made this because I think our society is a good place, but I also think there are some tendencies we need to speak about and discuss somehow, and we need to reflect together. And there is not like one right answer for this problem that's going on. So I made this because I hope that we can discuss something. And I made it not as a warning. I didn't make it because I think it's going so bad, but I think there are some things that cinema can discuss, and I think that cinema gives us this common experience together, no matter what you believe, where you're from, how you look, and you get the same emotion your way. And that's what I wanted to do with the film. And then it's the film I kind of like. I want the film to be also, when you speak about these things, it's okay that it's a bit hard or tragic or pessimistic, because then you maybe want to do the opposite when you finish watching it.
Thank you very much. This is your first feature. You had a short with us a couple years ago. Any ideas already for what's about to come after this?
Yeah, I was
something light.
Yeah,
maybe?
no, I don't know if it will be light, but this one was so much like fear and hate, like the main things. So the next one, really, I want to make something about love and sorrow. But it shouldn't be like light, but it should, because you spend so much time writing, researching, thinking, and somehow the film becomes your life for many years, maybe. And if you like it or not, it kind of changes who you are. And I think for me, that's why I make films also. You know, you get to live life and you get to see the perspective of a certain story you're telling. And maybe where I am now, I should make something about love.
That sounds like a very good idea, ladies and gentlemen. Ulaa Salim. stay here, just move along just a little bit. So that was the first tiger. You'll have to go one step further because we're about to invite two people to the stage. The second tiger film was No Coração do Mundo, the heart of the world, from Brazil, actually from Contagem, if I pronounce that right, in Brazil. That's very important. Let's take a look at it.
Beto! Qual é, Marquinhos? Cadê o Bero? O chão calcuzão é abertinho, filho. Pau! Você é doido? O que você falou comigo que você ia fazer? Deu, Marquinhos. Do jeito que deu, Marquinhos. Você chega na praça. Mata o cara errado. Com meu berro. Você acha que eu vou fazer o quê com você, desgraça?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage not two brothers, brothers in film, Gabriel and Maurílio Martins. Welcome, gentlemen. Your premiere was on a Friday. That was packed. You brought half of Contagem with you. My first question will be to the fact which is slightly similar maybe to what Ulaa was trying to find out in terms of cast. It's a very important part, it seems, of the film that it's set in this area, that it's these people, that they may not have been actors before. How did you find them? How did you collect this bunch of people that we all see in the film?
Yeah, so there are a lot of friends, and it's like my neighbor, for example. It's the guy in front of my house, and very professional actors like Gracie. It's one of the most important actors in Brazil. So the cast is a mix of people that Gabriel me loves and in the life, with professional actors or no professional actors. So, but especially the cast we made with feelings about the characters. So, this guy, it's perfect for this. Well, we will try. Like MC Carol, she is a singer in Brazil and a famous singer. So Gabriel one day said to me, well, Maurílio, so maybe MC Carol is good for this role. Well, yeah, I will try.
And this is not the first time we do that. We have a production company called Filmes de Plástico. We have three other films here in the festival. The other one is Temporada by André Novaes.
Beautiful film.
Yeah, and also I have a short film here in So in the Eye called Nada, and also Quintal by André Novaes, also in the So in the Eye, a short film. And we had another feature film called She Comes Back on Thursday in Rotterdam a few years ago, and also the short film Dona Sônia Borrowed a Gun from Her Neighbor Alcides, which is the character from this film. It was a short film we screened here in 2012, and we always believed that we could have this kind of mixture between people who had a long career and different backgrounds since on theater or maybe on cinema, and people who have never acted before, and not treat them differently in any way, because I think there's a lot they can learn from each other by being together. And I think the mixture and the result that comes out of it is something that I really love. It's not something new. If you think about City of God by Fernando Meirelles, it's something really close happens. You have different kinds of background actors acting together. And I think, as Maurílio said, these are our friends. These are people we love. We admire their work. And I think they have a lot to say to these characters. So this is the first goal we have when we call these people to the project.
there's what stood out for me in the film is that there's a couple of sequences that seem to take their time, that you let the action really go on, and then you figure out that it's actually must have been very complicated because actually there's a lot going on. But the intimacy that you have between those characters would imply that they somehow know each other, or that there's a new level of authenticity to it, which I found very compelling. Can you say how much of, apart from that work on creating those longer sequences and what happens in them, how you were able to make those threads of the story? Because there's quite a lot of characters come together to one story. Was it all totally planned out, or did you let things happen on screen as well? On set.
It was really crazy because I think having this feeling of being in a neighborhood, and this is like a film we've been planning for so long, like 7 years. The script was written like 7 years ago, and we made these shorts, and we wanted to expand the world of these shorts. And by the way, you guys can watch the short films in our YouTube channel. So it's something like complementary to the feature film. I think it would be nice because the stories really add together. And we talked about making this film for so long, and we were so in love with those characters and the other ones that we want to like put a bunch of people in the same film. And then was this first impulse, and then trying to figure it out, because it's not something gratuitous that these stories like they intertwine. I think it's like a wish that we could explore different kinds of stories and backgrounds, and how to show how the outskirts, and show how this community, this poor community, actually has different people, because we weren't happy with how this kind of film was being portrayed in Brazil, and especially us being from that place, seeing the reality every day. So I think dealing with this bunch of characters that are really different from each other, I think it was kind of making a statement about what kind of film we want to see. Because I think in the end we are filming the films we want to see. So I think this was very important. But the challenge was how to figure it out that in the editing room. So this was more than 1 year process. Me and Maurílio started cutting the film, and at some point we had like a 3.5 hour cut that we loved, but we started showing a few people, and they say we were too attached. So Guto Parente, which is a really a friend from ours from a long time ago. He had 2 films here last year, Inferninho and Clube dos Canibais, Cannibals Club.
Oh, that was his?
Yes, Guto is one of the editors of the film. Yeah.
Nice.
So he saw the film, and he said that he was seeing something really precious there, but we have to get rid of a bunch of stuff. He took the project to his hometown in Fortaleza and started editing all by himself. He came back, and then we got together and find this middle term, which was really only a little bit more focused on the characters of Marcos, Ana, and Selma, more about the robbery, and the other stuff we decided to just keep for the DVD extras, or
Sure.
and maybe tell another story with all those materials, which we love.
Actually, now that you mentioned the Cannibal Club, which I was very happy to see on screen when it was here, that was actually a very political film. Now, you've made the film, and you've made it clear that it's important that the representation of the people you love and the films you want to see is actually there. Brazil is going through an interesting phase, shall we say. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Quer falar de Bolsonaro? Yeah. Well,
It's hard.
yeah,
Feel free.
Yeah,
the world is watching.
Yeah. We totally need to talk about that, because not only Brazil, but I think in other places in the world, we have our own particular Trump. I don't know if it's better or worse. In some, it's really unbelievable in a way to be in this situation, and it's something that we can really dig in a complex way. And we could talk about how elections work in Brazil, how we have how our history works. But I think we have a new government that will take definitely our society many years back. Brazil's dictatorship ended in '84, so we have a really short democratic experience in a way. recent democratic experience, and we still didn't overcome those challenges. And I think we're starting to take a few steps forward, or thinking, discussing more about gender and race, and have a more fair society. And I really have to say that a lot of that is because of the government of Lula, and after that Dilma. And I think we had a political coup, and I think this is a really important to say that it was a coup, because many people in Brazil still don't believe that. Lula right now is in jail. He was our best president that changed the life of many people, saved some people from starvation, and now he's in jail. So I have to say to all my Brazilian friends watching, Lula livre. That is something that we say as a political stand, that we have to free Lula. And so I think this government is kind of a response to a few steps we did. We went forward, and some part of society wants to come back. Sometimes just because I think people are really confused about what politics are, and sometimes people are just trying to get their everyday bread, and the film is really also about that. And I think we will have a lot of challenges in this government, because it tends to be more violent, especially towards poor people, especially towards gay people, black people. So we have to be a lot of resistance, and we are going to fight against everything that's possible. But I think there's some dark times ahead, even for Brazilian cinema, because some of the funds are already being cutted. And so
it's a very nice one to see this film speak out with people in them. And by the way, the women steal the show totally in your film.
Yes,
that's a nice one. Ladies and gentlemen, no coração do mundo. How about you two guys sit at the end, because then we can have enough time to switch that next one in. So this brings us to a very interesting place. We are brought somewhere nice by the filmmaker of Take Me Somewhere Nice, Sendijarević, which premiered just yesterday. I hope you were there to see it. If not, take a look.
Yes.
Stigla sam, ne vidim te.
Okreni se 30 stepeni, idi 12 koraka naprijed. Narasla si.
I ti isto.
Gentlemen, please welcome Volkskrant Talent of the Year, Sendijarević. So you were the only one that, for whatever reason, screened in Pathé 1 yesterday. What was that like?
I'm still overwhelmed by it. Yes, it was very overwhelming. It was such a beautiful evening, actually. A lot of familiar faces as well in the audience, not only from the Netherlands, but also international film friends. And it was wonderful. Yeah, still a bit overwhelmed.
There was a nice moment yesterday where your lead actress, she said hi to me and said, "Well, this is actually weird because I'm still in the Middelbayerschool." She just turned 18, I think. There's something familiar about finding cast. You've said it before, but can you please say, how did you find this amazing actress?
It was quite difficult because we needed a girl that was Dutch and Bosnian, just like myself, and there aren't that many Dutch Bosnian people walking around. So we placed via Facebook and Instagram. We asked all Dutch Bosnian girls to come to the casting, and she was one of them. But one of the difficult things of the casting was that the film also deals with the theme of sexuality, and for some girls this was very scary. But she was really, I mean, she was really brave, and she trusted me, and she's just a very special person.
for those that haven't seen the film, can you shortly set up the film and maybe reference how much of that is your own history, or how much of that is just your statement on being between two nations, maybe?
Yes, so what I wanted to do, I wanted to make a playful and rebellious film about identity and about migration, because these are themes that play a role in my own life. I'm from Bosnia, but I've been living in the Netherlands for 25 years. And so I try to capture this kind of schizophrenic feeling through the art of cinema. And I did this by telling a story of a young girl that goes back to, she's a Dutch girl, and she goes to Bosnia because Bosnia is the country where her parents were born, and she spends a summer there. And then she goes on a road trip with her nephew and his best friend. And the story, actually, I just wanted to portray a young generation of people who have grown up in this globalized world, who have grown up with Facebook and Instagram, for whom the world is actually very small. I actually saw that, for example, EasyJet is even, they have an advertisement, they're saying Generation EasyJet. So the world is so small, everybody could travel. And I think, so I wanted to portray that generation of young people who are sometimes also stuck a little bit in between worlds. And to make something playful out of that. Yeah.
What I personally really enjoyed about that experience of watching the film is that while your tone and the way that you frame the film and frame the story is very humorous at times, it has absurdistic moments, yet it's also very gritty. And she is like a stoic face of, I just want to be me. How important was that part, that she is her own self, whether we like her or not, actually? Was that the main drive for this?
Yes, this was very important. I think I agree with Ulaa is the name, I think. I make films for the same reason as you do. I make films because they give me the chance to also discover the world, and they change me as well. So I felt, before making this film, I felt like I have to be a bit more, do a bit more only the things that I really want to do, you know? And so this was very important for me, that she was a character that maybe, I mean, for me, she's very rebellious, not because she has pink hair or, you know, like a lot of, I don't know, she's rebellious because she stays true to herself. And this is sometimes also difficult, especially, I mean, especially when I'm dealing with a film about migration, for example. We are used to talk about this theme in certain ways. So this is one part of the story. The other part of the story, why she's so stoic, is because I really wanted to use the film form to add a different layer to the storytelling. So the plot is a very simple plot. The plot is actually not that important to me. The form is very important to me. So I wanted to use humor and alienation to show that the world that I'm portraying is constructed by me. And if it's constructed by me, then the viewer, hopefully also young people in Bosnia, for example, can look at reality and see, oh, reality is constructed, so we can change it. So this was very important to alienate, because I'm also portraying Bosnia, and Bosnia is also going through a lot of difficulties, especially for young people. There's a percentage of, I think, of 60 of unemployment for young people, and they have to see that they can actually change their reality because it's constructed. Yeah.
So actually, what you're saying, if the film has changed you also to be even more outspoken for who you are, what's next, Anna?
Ooh. Yeah. What's next? What my next film is, or?
Well, no. you don't have to say what your next project is, but the interesting part is that by making the film, you just said you're actually changed as a filmmaker as well. There's an experience that you go through. It cannot be whether you're working on it for 5 years or 6 years, or it changes you as a person. And when you find something that this is actually what I want to do, it can be an encouragement or a discouragement of saying this is what my next direction will be.
Well, one of the big lessons I learned from this film is that sometimes you make decisions that really feel good, but not everyone around you can understand it at that moment. And so that's why it's also very important to have good producers that do understand you, but not the whole world can understand it. So for example, when we were in Bosnia, we were, sometimes there were crew members who were thinking, why are you making these ridiculous, jokes about some very serious things? And now, a year later, people actually anticipate to see the film, and they feel that they can be liberated. Not only in Bosnia, but I mean, this goes for. So this is what I learned through this film, that sometimes that you really have to stick to the thing that feels good, and then maybe it takes a year or maybe even longer before you understand why exactly. So maybe to be a bit more stubborn. But this was my personal lesson, and yes, and I for my next project I'm definitely going to. I'm making a period piece, a period film for my next film, and I'm definitely going to go a step further with this, combining the form and the narrative. Yeah.
Well, the reason that everyone here is entire competition is because you did not make the compromise or did not make the step back, but went one step further, which may even to some people be, I think I call it a slap in the face, which is the good kind of slap in the face, to know this is actually where we're heading, and maybe they'll realize it the same day, maybe a year after, but for sure it made an impact. Ladies and gentlemen, Anna Sendijarević. Sorry to go so quick. I would love to spend more time with each and every one of them, not just the film, but afterwards. Let us move on to the last one of the day, the film that you haven't seen yet because it's screening tonight, a film from China. It's called Present.Perfect, and let us take a little look.
Oh, yeah! Yeah. 这是太空步吗，大哥吗？那是太空步吗？就这样。那是太空步吗，哥们们？这是吗？我的鞋都磨破了，这是还是不是啊？你们倒说句话呀！ 哎呀，不然再给你们拿个蛤蟆功，蛤蟆功啊，豁出去了。哥哥们，我现在也，我就坚持1个小时就行了，随便你们点不点订阅啊，我坚持1个小时就行。
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shengze. Hey, good morning. This is the clip immediately gets a nice reaction. Can you explain briefly what you actually did with this film?
Yes, so this film actually is a little bit is quite special for me as well, because until now I still haven't met any of the person in my film in person, like a face-to-face, like what we are doing now. But of course I talked to them. So this is a film made up of footage that was completely filmed and broadcasted by live streamers, Chinese live streamers in China, but all the footage was recorded in Chicago. So it's a long distance film. But actually what they are doing is just like what we're doing now, because we are live streaming now, right? So, but of course without the professional cameras, because they use cell phones.
So we're talking about people in China that stream with their cell phones to the world. It's not recorded, it's not a found footage film. So how did you know, or who was in Chicago recording these things as they were streaming? Because it's 800 hours of material. Yeah. Who had that many hard drives? What was the story?
Right, I had a dozen of huge hard drives on my desk. So actually, I knew, so live streaming is something is quite new. It barely existed in China probably 5 years ago, but now it creates like billions of revenues, and there are millions of people are involved in this industry. But in my film, those anchors, those people that you will see, they are more like little known people who are using live streaming to get connected with other people. And for me, it's quite a difficult process to finally find these people, and finally, to decide whom I would follow or whom I would, watch at this moment. Because all the footage, if you miss it, then you would never have a chance to see it again. So it's like fleeting moment, just like documentaries. But the main difference is that all the footage are filmed by the people, by the subjects or participants themselves, instead of a professional camera person.
So there's, for instance, a scene in the film where a little human walks and describes the fact that he's basically a eunuch, which is heartbreaking and also very, very endearing. Did you find this person? How did you connect to him? Has he seen what you've done with the film? That in itself is a project, it seems.
So for me, so at first I was more intrigued by some like very weird or strange activities, but after probably a month of watching, I feel immune to that kind of activities, because they just try to entertain you. But of course now they are so I started looking for people who have a very strong personality, who really want to express themselves to the people on the other side of the screen, and that they probably would never meet offline, just like me, they never meet. So it's because I feel like nowadays, like the boundary between reality and the virtuality becomes more and more ambiguous. Like internet becomes a very, very important part of our life, and smartphones become like an extension of our body. So you just need it. Yeah, just like what those people in my film, they need live streaming to talk to other people. Yeah.
So I hope you'll all be able to see it, because it's very endearing at times, but you also use sequences that are almost abstract in their time or look on, like the cranes, for instance. How did you go about getting this into something that appears to have a narrative structure at all?
Yeah, it's very hard. It took me, but the special part is that I'm recording while editing. So it's not like I got all the footage and then I started editing. No, it's like it happens simultaneously. So because I feel so the narrative emerges as the footage, as their life changes, because it's real time, So yes, so I got So for me, the editing process is very, very complicated at first, because there are thousands of people out there, they're doing live streaming, and at first I didn't know whom to focus. But after a while, I started to more focus on people who are in a less perfect situation. There's no solid storyline in the film, and there's no plot, but it's more about their real life and the real happenings that these people really want to share with other people.
Would you say it has a political dimension, or is that not the case?
It's political, but it's also apolitical. I guess everything is political in a way. So this film, it doesn't deal with political issue directly, but also live streaming actually is a form that you can say it's not political because it's anonymous and it's unregulated. Especially in Western countries like YouTube, you can find many different things. But in China specifically, yes, there is censorship and there is regulation that to regulate what you should do and what you should not do. For example, you cannot smoke in front of like during live streaming. You cannot do that.
What happens if you do? You get cut off immediately, or what happens?
They send you warnings.
Okay.
Or otherwise, or maybe they would give you penalty. Depends. So how serious the thing is. So, but these people. But what I really want to say in this film is how human relationships transform in this digitally connected world. Like you don't have to travel to other places, and no matter where you are and what time zone you are in, you can get connected with people that you just want to connect with. Yeah.
Now, if you say that, that can be interpreted in two ways, because a lot of the scenes to me were almost like a tragic cry for please see me, or please reach out to me. I want to meet someone, lonely at times actually. So is this the solution, or is this just a sign of actually how lonely we all are?
I would say both. For these people, definitely, because most of them, they live in rural areas in the countryside, and some of them, they work in factories, and they have to work, the whole month, like only get 1 day off. So the real world for them is quite small. They don't have the access to to speak to other people, and of course some people, they have disabilities and they fear face-to-face communication because they would feel much more comfortable talking to the screen, which for me is actually very awkward. So it's different. But at the other time, I would say these people, they're just like us, like regular human beings. They want to be that little star in their own world. They want the attention. So that's why they decide to take the camera to put the spotlight on themselves.
Let's close up the session for a second. Yes, sure, go ahead.
Present.Perfect. So do you mean the present-perfect tense, which I find it really relevant, or just present-perfect each alone because there is a dot in between?
So the question is about the title, Present.Perfect. What is it actually? Why did you do the title? What's this?
It's the tense. Because I'm really interested in the relationship between past and the present. But the reason I added that 2 dots, because I also want to say it's not a tense, it's 2 words. So present is really what live streaming is about. It has a strong sense of liveness because you can instantaneously experience what others are doing, regardless of where you are and what time zone it is. So it's about the presence. And of course, cinema is about presence as well. It's time-based art. So, and the perfect, it's a Chinese intellect slang. It's used by a celebrity in a show, like talk show, and of course it just has the same meaning, like excellent, great. But that's how it got popular, very popular among those live streaming anchors. So for example, the singer in the film, they would say, "Perfect, thank you," like every time after he finished the performance. But also on the other hand, those anchors in my film, they are somehow in a not that perfect situation. But I think it's also just like us, like nobody is perfect, and nothing is perfect in this world. Yeah.
Any other questions at this point? Over there.
Oh, me? Okay, sorry. So first, because all the footage was filmed and shot by different devices. So I really want to, use black and white to give all the footage all the image a certain consistency. But but another reason, a very, very important reason, is that black and white is not what you see in the real world and on the internet. It's different than what you see. So this way, black and white gives the film, let the film maintain a certain detachment from both the real world and the certain and the virtual community. Then it gives the film its own subjectivity. Yeah.
Any other questions at this point? Mohammed Atif?
So that doesn't make it absolutely present.
You mean black and white? Yeah. Yes, because when you watch the film in the theater, all the happenings, all the things happening in the film and those people is already in the past tense, but it has a consequence or influence or impact on our present life. So that's why I say I'm more interested in the relationship between present and past.
Let's wrap this session up for the biggest part. What I'd like to acknowledge or hope that you will see, which I found so fantastic, is that we've got, well, actually 5 filmmakers here that each try to find out who needs to be on screen and are bold enough to show us their work. That's why they're in target competition.
When we watch Meryl Streep acting, she has a whole past of things she done that makes her act in this specific way and won a bunch of Oscars and shit. But our experience is that we find a lot of awesome people that maybe always wish they were an actor or actress, but they never had the opportunity to choose this profession. So now I'm talking about profession and that specific choice. And our films, pretty much all of them are set in our community. And for most people, they didn't even have the choice of doing college. So they have to work. Most of the times, they don't have to choose a work that they love. So I think, in a way, and I'm just telling this because this is a long discussion in Brazil, and especially those terms, actor, non-actor. And for me, I think each background will give you different kinds of material to work with. If you study acting for a long time, theater acting, movie acting, you have a lot of resources that you can use. But maybe in this process, and I could also say that about directing a film, because I don't exactly think my film is better than a whole bunch of awesome YouTube videos that some person just made with their cell phone. Sometimes I think there's YouTube videos that are way better than my films. So this is
select them then.
Yeah. No, yeah, maybe I don't know. Yeah, but I'm just saying this not as a kind of just to provoke a little bit, so we can be a little bit more. This is just my personal opinion, but to be really open-minded and discuss how many of our choices and perspectives about acting and filmmaking can be a lot of institutionalized in a way, and how we also sometimes. I'm not saying you did that because I love your question because it makes us think about these things. But how sometimes we are thinking about a point of view that happens in a world with a political, economical system that excludes some people. And not all the choices people made freely, because sometimes they are not able to do many choices. So when I think about acting, I think, and our experience is that this combination of different backgrounds doesn't make one person more real than another person, or some person more professional than another. I think we are talking about a lot of different ways of working. And for example, some people that acted in the first films with us, that never acted before, didn't have a professional background, they start making a lot of films, and suddenly they have like 15 feature films they have done. So when did they stop being non-actors? And when did they start being actors? And so this is what I think. I think it's an invitation so we can approach this subject with some kind of perspective. And having born and grew up in a poor community, I'm trying to, my presence here is to bring you guys this perspective and how I always felt we've been watched. Because when we began, it was discredited as filmmakers. Because we didn't come from Rio de Janeiro, we didn't come from São Paulo. We came from a small neighborhood. So, you know, so this to have a kind of political perspective about that. But for me, I think it's a possibility to everyone to act. And the effects will be different, of course. But how awesome would it be to have a film with Meryl Streep and a known actor from our neighborhood? I would really watch that film. I would love to watch that film. So that's what I think.
You agree? You have a similar view on this?
Yeah, I really also, I like the first answer you gave before when talking about actors in your film. The combination I really like. But I also must say that, like, from old Italian films, you know, they were some of the first that took the film industry or the film that was very heavy and put it out in the street and started using real people to get different kind of stories. So I maybe think that's also what I hear you say, or at least how I see it, that sometimes when you bring people that are not professional, you also put something very real, because in a sense, if they trust you, they're willing to give everything they have. And that combined with a professional actor that has so much experience, so much to give to a film, is a very, very good combination. But I think it's been done through film for many years, and now you just start to see it in different levels. Also with directors or script writers, I wouldn't mind writing a script with somebody who is not a script writer from the beginning, but you learn everybody can learn to direct or act or write a script, but you kind of have to get the chance. So that combination with classical directors, actors, I think is really strong. And it's important because everybody in society can then see themselves in those films.
Nice.
Gabriel Martins, you mentioned that Brazil now, sadly, under a military coup. So I'm asking about the atmosphere from the industry now. For you as a filmmaker, how free you are to express your ideas to make such film like this? Or you have a different kind of coups than that kind of coups we were knowing in the 70s?
Is working? Yeah. I think now we have a certain type of, we are in a so-called democracy in Brazil, but I think it will be hard for some kind of freedom of expression. I think we have that, but I think we will start to have, just a few weeks ago, elected congressman who is openly gay, got a lot of death threats, and he said he won't be doing his term and he will stay outside of Brazil. So this kind of retaliation that we're seeing, and just last year we had a congresswoman shot and killed, who's called Marielle, and they never discovered who killed her, and was obviously a political act. So there's this tension going in Brazil, and I think what will reflect in us filmmakers is that, for example, I shot a feature film in December that was funded by a specific fund destined to black filmmakers. This is the kind of thing that this new government doesn't believe we should have. So I think it's the kind of thing we are going to have to deal with, like some funds being cutted. And it's a belief in this government that we shouldn't talk about politics in school, that you shouldn't discuss like this specific subjects, because this is like a work of the leftists. We're starting to see like having a left perspective as being the boogeyman. So this is I think us filmmakers are going to have to deal with, is always struggling with trying to just defend basic rights of equality and all these things, because for this government this is kind of an alien thing, like to discuss misogyny, to discuss racism. They think this is something that doesn't happen in Brazil, that doesn't exist. So I think the thing I'm most afraid right now, and pretty much the whole filmmaker community, I think, is a lot of very important funds being cut, and a lot of funds that were responsible for bringing most of the Brazilian films in all film festivals, and making it possible for many filmmakers to go outside of Brazil, because some festivals, the Brazilian government gives us tickets and gives tickets to bring the actors and actresses. And if you just start cutting those funds, it's very expensive for us to travel to other countries. So what we're going to see is less presence of the people in the festivals, and this, in some ways, can shorten and kill a whole bunch of important things going in an industry. In the 90s, that was a year that wasn't a single Brazilian film made because of a political decision that cut the funds. So we are facing a really tense times because we are pretty much dependent on the states to make the films in Brazil, most of the Brazilian filmmakers. So with this government shift, everything gets a little bit uncertain in a way. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, actually talking about financial films is something luxurious than what I'm asking about, because I'm asking about your personal safety in Brazil as a filmmaker.
As a filmmaker, work?
Yes, controversial issues like this.
Yeah, I grew up having to work with other stuff to pay my bills, not only movies, because it wasn't a reality. And for a few years now, I actually only work with films.
Any attacks against you?
It's possible.
Against your shooting locations?
It's possible. Kleber Mendonça Filho, which is a Brazilian director, I don't know if you guys heard, he did Neighboring Sounds, he did Aquarius, because they did that protest in Cannes, because of the Brazilian coup. There was a lot of retaliation in Brazil, in a direct way, in an indirect way. So that showed us that maybe you can you start thinking about the things you are going to speak. But of course, I'm not going to censor myself. I can never do that. I prefer to suffer any kind of retaliation, because I can't just let this happen. I was born in I believe in a different system than that. I cannot. I wasn't supposed to say for many people about Lula here, but of course I'm going to say it's what I believe. I believe in free speech, but what will happen? It's a question mark. I don't have any specific answer because we just have. We are in the first month of this new government, so we don't know what's going to happen.
We actually, maybe it's nice for you, Mama, to know. Well, it might be nice for you, Mama, to check out the Freedom Lecture Agnieszka Holland gave yesterday. I think it's still, we put it online also. No, we filmed it, man. You can watch it and have the entire, the relevance of creating platforms that are freedom of expression on all levels, including the little bits of cutting funding here and left and right towards outright threats is a bigger issue that we all need to discuss, and we want to be a part of that. I think we have time for one last question. If anyone has one last question? No? Nice. Give a big round of applause to these beautiful people. Thank you, thank you.